We light the first candle in honor of Christianity. Self-rejection is the greatest enemy of the spiritual life because it contradicts the sacred voice that calls us the beloved. Being the beloved constitutes the core of our existence. We light the second candle in honor of Buddhism. The Buddha nature is simply the birthright of every sentient being. Our Buddha nature is as good as any Buddha's Buddha nature. We light the third candle in honor of the Shinto tradition. Everyone has a spirit that can be refined, a body that can be trained in some manner, a suitable path to follow. You are here to realize your inner divinity and manifest your innate enlightenment. We light the fourth candle in honor of Hinduism. The soul appears to be finite because of ignorance. When ignorance is destroyed, the self, which does not admit of any multiplicity, truly reveals itself by itself, like the sun when the clouds pass away. We light the fifth candle in honor of Islam. Stop acting so small. You are the universe in a static motion. We light the sixth candle in honor of Judaism. In the proverbial beginning, there was something like a tremendous explosion of godness that at once created the universe and filled it. Now, looked at one way, this was a disintegration. As the language of the text says, a descent of sparks of holiness into the outer darkness. Looked at another way, it was the expansion of holiness to enlighten the darkness. We light the final candle of the Native American religions. All things share the same breath. The beast, the tree, the man. The air shares its spirit with all the life it supports.
If we think we can guide our brother aright, while our own feet still walk in darkness, we are mistaken. We must first clarify our own vision. Then we shall become as light, lighting the way for others. But we can teach a lesson. We cannot teach a lesson we have not learned. Can we give that which we do not possess? To suppose is hypocrisy, a thing to be shunned. We cannot see reality until our eyes are open, until the light of eternal truth has struck deeply into our own souls. Let's take these thoughts into our mind and contemplate them for a few moments. And as we come together this morning, we come with open minds and hearts, recognizing that there is that within each of us that knows truth, that has a sense of that which is good and right for us, that is always guiding and directing us to a higher good. And as we do this individually, we do it as a community. As we grow together, as we learn to love together, as we become indeed that bright light individually for ourselves and our families and our friends, but together as a community, we become that in this greater community of Dayton and in this country and in the world. Our light is bright, and it is true. And today we just acknowledge that. We open to it. We allow ourselves to grow in our understanding of truth. And how grateful I am for this. And together we can simply say, and so it is, yes.
Well, astonishingly, it's December. Wow. Woohoo! I don't know how that happens sometimes, but it's December, and that's the darkest month of the year, astronomically speaking. So, our mythology as humans, and when I say mythology, I mean that in the highest and largest sense of the word, the sense of big stories that convey huge and important truths. That's what I mean when I say mythology. Human mythology surrounding this time of year has always been about the living spirit, has always been about the realness that lives within us, the light and life that inhabits us. And so today I want to talk a little bit about this very last line of Ernest Holmes' reading. We cannot see, capital R, reality until our eyes are open, until the light of eternal truth has struck deeply into our own souls. That's what we do every week, is try and get it to strike deeply into our own souls so that we can wake up and be all that we're here to be. So these stories of December, there are lots and lots of them, and they remind us that regardless of what it looks like outside, regardless of whether our circumstances are dark or not, things get brighter. They always do. They remind us that no matter what our circumstances may appear to be, we are the spirit of life embodied. Human beings have told stories about this since we first showed up on the planet, since we first evolved enough to develop language and be able to share with one another important stories. And before we started writing everything down, and long before we started videotaping our whole lives on our phones, we told stories. The stories were passed from person to person and generation to generation because they matter. They're important stories. No matter how old they are, they still matter. Their messages matter. The kernel of truth that lies in the middle of the story is a life and death and growth thing. It matters to us. It helps us remember who we are. And I think sometimes, unfortunately, we've forgotten the kernel and gotten all wrapped up in the story. But still the kernel is there, and we can still look for it and find it after all this time and realize that what the mystics of the ages have been reminding us of is there is a gift in the story for us right here and right now. So December has lots of holidays. December 8th is the first one I came up with, and December 8th is Bodhi Day, and that celebrates the day that Gautama Buddha was enlightened, his realization of his own Buddha nature. I love that part of the candle lighting reading, is we have to remember that our Buddha nature is as good as any Buddha's Buddha nature. It's very important to remember that, right? He recognized what I would call the living spirit within him. Whether you call that God or Buddha nature or anything else. His followers would not call it God, but I think we're all talking about the same thing. I really do. We also have Hanukkah, the Festival of Lights in December. And this is traditionally a celebration of a miracle that happened in Jewish history, but it's not really. It's about an internal miracle. It's about us. It's a recognition of the living spirit within us. The traditional story is about the rebuilding and re-sanctifying of the temple at Jerusalem after it had been defiled by the Seleucids, who decided they should slaughter pigs on the altar. So in order to re-sanctify the temple, what was required was a lot of oil, olive oil, that had been blessed and sanctified by the high priest. But they only had a little tiny vial, enough for one night. They lit the lamps, and then they put into motion the process that would result in more oil being blessed by the high priest that they could use, but they never needed that other oil because the one night supply burned for 8 days, hence the length of the Hanukkah as we celebrate it today. But if you think about this as an internal miracle, what it means is the realization that within us there is, that we're the temple, first of all. We're the place God dwells, that we're the temple. And within us we're able to keep going miraculously because of what lives within us, that we're able to keep going despite difficult circumstances, that we're able to do things we think we can't do, that we're able to bring light even when we feel like our own resources are drained. There's more happening within us than just that one day supply of oil, of light. And of course in December we also have the solstice and the Roman celebration of the birth of Sol Invictus, the unconquerable sun, both of which I think are all about the return of the sunlight and the never-ending source of sunlight that's within us. It's an unconquerable source of light and life. And of course, in the West, most central for us is Christmas. We grew up learning about the holiday as a story of a birth of a baby named Jesus, and there were carols and presents and Christmas trees and lots of other pagan symbols, but the story was about the birth of this baby Jesus, born to a virgin, followed by a miraculous star, magi, wise men, and shepherds worshipped this baby. All of these are miracle stories. Have you noticed? I mean, the Buddha, in his enlightenment, defeated hordes of Mara, the illusion, all of the seeming enemies of the dark side came to visit him, and he defeated them miraculously. We have the oil burning for 8 days instead of one. We have the star and all the rest of the Christmas signs and portents. All the miracle stories have sometimes gotten in the way of the message. The trappings, the miracles, the big stuff in the story are there to help us remember the story and to remind us that there's a very important message in the center of it. And the message is the living spirit also lives in us. It lives in everyone. It lives in all things. Spirit, by whatever name you call it, isn't something that did miracles 5 or 3 or 2,000 years ago. It's here, it's now, it's living in and as and through each one of us, and all creation, and miracles abound. Miracles abound. The message is that spirit, by whatever name you call it, is power and light and love and infinite proportions. It lives in the world by means of us. That is what did Holmes call it? The light of eternal truth that needs to strike deeply into our own souls. That's the message of all these miracle stories. And like the Magi of the Christmas story, this living spirit comes to us simply by virtue of the fact that we're here, bearing gifts. Bearing gifts. So I want to talk about some of the important gifts, I think. The first one is obvious. It's life, right? It is the gift of life. But some of the most important in my mind are of the gifts of the living spirit are these: wisdom, understanding, right judgment, courage, joy, knowledge, and reverence and awe. We receive them as at the time we're born. They're gifts, and as we use them, they bring us to an ever greater and ever deeper understanding of what we truly are. What Holmes has called dispensing stations or transmitting stations for the infinite good. That's what we are. We are the same living spirit that is told about in these miracle stories, Buddha nature, the inner Christ, embodied and breathing and speaking and thinking and acting in this world, right here and right now. So let me talk about these gifts for a minute. What is this gift of wisdom? I think the gift of wisdom is knowing the right choices to make so that we live sacred lives. We know the right choices to make. We give ourselves the time and space necessary to come to that deeper and greater understanding. We have an innate wisdom, and we develop that gift of innate wisdom through the spiritual practices that we teach here: meditation, self-examination, self-knowing, daily communion in some way with the deeper part of ourselves, service to others, generosity of spirit. Wisdom also involves listening to that still small voice that speaks within us, that impulse that tells us when to act and when not to, when to speak and when not to, when to give ourselves extra care, and when to get completely out of ourselves by finding someone else who needs extra care and giving it to them. Wisdom helps us make the choices that move us into that deeper recognition that we are expressions of this living spirit. The gift of understanding is the thing that helps us understand that despite appearances, we are all one. Despite the fact that we all seem separate, and despite the fact that you don't look like I do and you don't think like I do, we are all one underneath that. Understanding lets us be sympathetic with those seeming others. It lets us be compassionate, and as our understanding deepens, we become welcoming to all others, no matter what. It helps us sense when someone needs our compassion, and it helps us free ourselves from the tangles of ego that just always wants us to just look out for ourselves. Tries to convince us that we truly are separate and that we shouldn't be looking out for anybody else, because then who's going to look out for us, right? It helps us reach beyond ourselves. The gift of right judgment might also be called the gift of enlightened consciousness, or conscience, enlightened conscience. Remember, I don't know about you, but I grew up with the picture of the angel on one shoulder and the devil on the other shoulder, and all they did was heckle each other, right? The enlightened consciousness or conscience is that part of us that knows when we're about to do something, whether it's appropriate or not. We know that we're about to say something that's cruel, or we're about to do something that's really only about just us instead of the greater whole. And yeah, sometimes we do it anyway. But the gift of right judgment is knowing. It's that feeling that reminds us what the right thing is to do, and that teaches us what the consequences are when we don't. And the consequences are internal. We have violated our own values, right? Courage is the thing that helps us stand up for what we believe, including our own values. It's the gift that reminds us that we are the voices and hands and minds and ears of the living spirit, and that behind us lies not, as Holmes said, not some power, not a little power, but all power. That's what courage is for. It taps us into that power that lives at the core of our being. And when we remember that, the inner obstacles sort of fall away. Resistance, fear, self-absorption, all those things. Those things that would keep us small and hidden and stuck and soul sick. Courage lets us go beyond. And courage is like a muscle. It develops when we use it. Every small courageous act gives us greater courage so that when we have to do something big, we have big courage. Joy is a gift of our inner innate nature as well. It's a gift of the living spirit. And I'm talking of the joy that we feel when we realize, as one of the candlelight readings reminded us, that we are the beloved. When we allow ourselves to sense how deeply loved we are by this creative impulse of the universe. It's not giddy, it's not fleeting, it's deep and abiding. And it's our emotional foundation. We build on it as we practice using all these gifts we're given, as we tune into the depth of satisfaction that we feel when we live in the joy of the inner life. As we realize that all those distractions out there, stuff and things and problems and to-do lists and busyness and the flood of online information that will distract us completely, that the outer life doesn't contain what it is we seek. What we seek is already ours. And joy is that thing that reminds us and lets us know we found it. Knowledge is the ability to learn. It is the fruit of that innate ability that we have been given to learn. The gift of knowledge lets us learn from people who had died 5,000 years ago, like Moses, or 3,000 years ago, like Buddha, or 2,000 years ago, like Jesus. It lets us learn from those people. It lets us learn from our own experiences and to learn from our inner environment. What an amazing thing this is. We can look at an experience, we can analyze it thoroughly, we can compare it to earlier experiences. I did this and I experienced that, and here's what I've learned from it. It lets us use our experience and our learning from prior experiences to know how to move forward in the next moment. All animals learn to one degree or another, but we have also been given the gifts of memory and imagination. And you put that together with this ability to learn, and you have powerful, powerful tools. What a miraculous thing it is that we can do all that fast. Wow. Reverence is the gift that lets us balance knowing that we are beautiful and powerful and light-filled beings of God against that part of the ego that wants to take us up to the mountaintop and say, if you bow down and worship me, baby, all this is yours, right? We have to watch out for that part of us, don't we? Reverence reminds us that the power of the living spirit pours through us only as we allow it. So only as we keep our channels clear and clean, and only as we sort of surrender, not surrender to, but surrender into this flow of life. It reminds us that we are spirit. It's all we are. And at the same time, spirit is infinitely more than we are. And as we just surrender into that flow, we have at our fingertips that amazing power. And wonder and awe keep us in constant awareness of that power. Look at a sunset, or a baby, or snowflake, or trees that are still bearing these incredible fall colors around here, or spring green, or tropical fish, or polar bears, or anything. I mean, there's so much that will bring us instantly to wonder and awe. And those glimpses of this thing that lives within us do the same thing. We're brought to this place of wonder and awe and reminded that we are part of that, and it is still it is infinitely more. And that's the all power that we have. We have access to when we keep our channels clear and surrender into it. See, we're reminded through reverence and awe that all these gifts of spirit are just that, they're gifts. They're gifts. We didn't do anything to earn them. They were given to us. And they're not to be taken for granted, but used and appreciated and built up through practice. Wow. In your bulletin this morning, you found a little kindness advent calendar. And each day has a little tiny something to do. Something that takes the focus off our busyness, off our stress, off our us, off, I want to go up to the mountaintop and see my kingdom, all that stuff. Takes us away from all that and drops us into a moment of sacredness. Each day is a little tiny bit of practice at being the living spirit. They're so simple. Be kind to yourself. Do something that makes you laugh out loud. Sign up to be an organ donor. Give someone your full attention. Put down your phone and really listen. They're simple things. So I hope you will keep this calendar somewhere where you can see it every day. And I hope you'll do the thing that's suggested on that day. Take 2 or 3 minutes to connect to the flow of living spirit within you. There's no faster way to do it than to step on to sacred ground for a moment and do something out of love. All of these use these spiritual gifts I've been talking about, and they let us flex our spiritual muscles. So I invite you to flex your spiritual muscles this December, doing things that will not only increase your awareness of the gifts you have been given, but will also build their strength. Because this, the darkest time of the year, is, as the great stories remind us, the time to let ourselves be consistently reminded that we are the embodiments of the living spirit. This is the time of year when we're invited to allow ourselves to become more and more deeply aware of that central truth about ourselves. This is the time of year when we let the light that is within us shine out more brightly to brighten the whole world. So I invite you right now to just join me in awareness and quiet. A quiet remembrance that there is only this living spirit, that nowhere in the universe is there anything else, that there's no moment in time that is not fully taken up with God, in God. For there's only God, there's only one life, one mind, one vast infinite heart in which we all partake. It is the very truth of our being. It is what lives through us. It is what we see as we look at the sunset or into a baby's eyes or pat a puppy or a kitten or watch the leaves fall. This is God in expression. As the Sufis say, wherever I look, I see the face of God, including in the mirror. As I know this is the truth of me, I know it is the truth of everyone here, indeed the truth of everyone everywhere. All creation is the expression of the life of God. And because we have been given such precious gifts, we get to be aware of this. We get to be self-aware that within us speaks a still small voice that reminds us how beloved we are and how powerful we are, that reminds us to go this way and not that way, that urges us to say the kind word, to give the generous gift, to be the light in the world. And that voice of the living spirit speaks to us all the time, all the time. And so right now we tune into it. We let ourselves listen. We remind ourselves to be aware, to be open, to be receptive, and to allow this flow of God, the good, through us. How grateful I am to know that this is the truth about each one of us here. How grateful I am for this community of conscious people who are willing to be open to that flow, who are willing to let all of these gifts of spirit grow in them, who are willing to show up in the world as their beautiful, glorious, beloved selves. How grateful I am. And so from this place of gratitude, I just let go. I know that the God that is always present in every moment of time has heard, has said yes, has already made it so. So I just let it be. And we say together, and so it is. I am just a thread, a simple thread in this glorious web of life.
We are all just drops within a stream, flowing towards an ocean of light.
We may forget where we come from. We may forget where we're going to. I might not see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you.
Just a seed, a blessed seed with eternity unfolding in me. And I pray that as I grow, I will reveal the love that illuminates my soul. When I remember where I come from, when I remember where I'm going to, then I will see that you're a reflection of me as much as I'm a reflection of you.
This is my simple prayer, that I become a reflection of the Infinite One. This is my simple prayer, may I become a reflection of the Infinite One. This is my simple prayer, may I become a reflection of the Infinite One. This is my simple prayer, may I become a reflection of the Infinite One. Amen. We now have an opportunity to give in support of the work of our center. Everything that you give makes it possible for us to be here, so we really appreciate it. I would invite you, as the basket passes through your hands, whether you're able to give or not, or if you give electronically as I do, simply bless the abundance of our community as that basket goes by. Know that we have all that we need and more. Enough to do our work and enough to share with others. And stop and take just a moment to count your blessings, to realize all that you have to be grateful for. This community, your home, your friends, your family, your health, all the love that you receive. The attitude of gratitude is the attitude that says thank you to the universe and opens us up to more good. And so please know with me, my heart is open.
My heart is open.
I give from my open heart.
I give from my open heart.
I know that as I give, so do I receive.
I know that as I give, so do I receive.
And I am grateful.
And I am grateful.
And so it is. Heck yeah. Whew. So I want to say thanks to Kelly O'Keefe and Angie Smith, Teresa Napke, and of course Gracie, Cynthia Dunleavy, Jane Robinson, and Clara and Cora Jackson. I hope I didn't miss anybody, Kelly.
She's in the counting.
Okay. I hope I didn't miss anybody who helped decorate, but thank you all for putting up the trees and decorating so beautifully. Really, really wonderful job. Thank you, thank you. And I want to point out those 2 trees in the foyer there. One is for 2 single mother families who simply don't have the means for Christmas. And the other is for a cat rescue program in Englewood. So pick up the tags for the gifts that you want to buy them and wrap them, and on the people gifts, just use a regular name tag so they don't know what's inside, okay? Just a regular old name tag. And return the gifts to the center by December 19th, which is 2 weeks from tomorrow. The animal tree gifts can come in later until January 5th, but let's just give them all a wonderful Christmas, shall we? We'll do that. This coming Saturday, December 10th, is bingo at the VA. You can meet here at 1 p.m. to head over to the VA as a group so nobody gets lost and brighten the holidays for some of our veterans. They loved it the last time we were there. So if you're not doing anything Saturday afternoon, plan to go to the VA and play bingo. If you don't want to do that, you can also spend an hour or so setting up and decorating for our annual holiday community dinner, which is a week from today, right after the service. The setup is Saturday at 1 p.m. and the meal is Sunday, December 11th, right after service. Speaking of that, you can sign up to bring something to share right over at the community center on the bulletin board. The turkey and the ham is being provided, and I invite you to bring something to go with all of that. There's categories over there to make it easier for you. Sunday, December 18th in the evening is a really spectacular laser curtain and light show with Carl Anthony. This is a real soul break from the holiday rush. It's chanting and breathing and resting and connecting with music and a laser light show. I think you're gonna love it. Tickets are $20 in advance or $25 at the door, and you can pay for them over at the Welcome Center as well. If you pay in advance, we'll either hold your tickets at will call at the door on the night of the event, and I'm keeping very careful records there, so you're writing your name on the back of the ticket, or you can take them with you, or you can pay $25 at the door if you'd rather. Let's see, there is more information about all sorts of things coming up on the last page of your bulletin under calendar, and the insert will also let you know about the classes that are coming up in January. So take a look at that so you don't miss anything. You can also look at our calendar online at www.cslgd.org. If you would like prayer for something after the service, for anything that might be going on in your life where you can't quite see the truth, you can't quite understand the spiritual message that's there for you, talk to one of our practitioners. Any one of these beautiful women with the white or teal shawls, just go up to them and say, I'd like prayer, and they will find a quiet corner to pray with you. They have studied and practiced and prayed for many years so they can see the truth even when you can't. It's their gift to you on Sunday. It's a 1-minute miracle of prayer. You can also put a written prayer request back in the chest by the door, or you can call our prayer line. The number's on the back of the bulletin. Or you can even go back to that website and make an electronic prayer request if that works best for you. And speaking of prayer, if you'd like an opportunity to get more comfortable with this 5-step affirmative prayer we do here, Sunday mornings at 9 a.m., Marge Russell hosts a circle of prayer. You can come any Sunday to learn about and practice in a really non-threatening, loving environment this affirmative prayer. It's very powerful stuff. Marge told me that everything this group prayed for has come to pass. So you can come for that and then stay for the Science of Mind discussion group at 9:30, which is a wonderful drop in anytime kind of discussion group. followed by the service. So I think that's it. Have I missed anything that anyone wants to point out to me? Okay, good. Thanks to everybody who made this morning's service possible. Did I? No, you sang your song. I didn't miss anything there. Good.
Sunday that we're having, what's the Sunday that we're having the dinner?
Next Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody who made this morning's service possible. The ushers and greeters, the practitioners, the welcome team, and everyone in the Consciousness Cafe. Speaking of which, it's Sweet Sunday today. You know, it's Christmas season. It's time to pack on the sugar and, So go and have something delicious and sweet with your community today. We have Sweet Sunday. Thanks to everyone who brought food, and thanks to Lisa for making sure that happens every Sunday. Thanks to this amazing group of musicians. Love you, love you. You're fabulous. That's great stuff today. Great stuff today. And thanks to all of you for being here to celebrate. So let's stand up for our closing affirmation on our closing song, which is Holy Ground. I celebrate the gifts of the Spirit.
I celebrate the gifts of the Spirit.
I let its life flow in me.
I let its life flow in me,
Through me.
through me,
As me.
as me,
And so it is.
and so it is.
Have a wonderful week, everybody.